Hey, it's BAO, and this is Coffee with BAO, where I chat with awesome people about their creative process, their cultural identity, and how they continue to grow as a human being. You can find all of my past guests or get in touch with me at coffeewithbao.com. And I'm super excited about my guest today. I'm hanging out with a fellow Asian American musician. He's a hip hop and R&B artist from Atlanta. His music's been featured in some Netflix shows, Wu Assassins, The CW, Fuse TV, and a bunch more. And he's got a new album coming up with Coffee with BAO alumni Jason Chu in a few days. So we're going to talk about the album. It's going to be pretty dope. Here's my new friend, Alan Z from Atlanta. What's up, Alan?
Hey, friend. How are you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for joining me.
No doubt.
So you've been on self-imposed, like, super strict lockdown?
Yeah, so I am one of the few people in this country that actually stayed inside since mid-March. And I've been shamed so many times for, like, rejecting opportunities, gigs, or not coming outside. But I just don't trust people, man. Like, if everyone just actually, like, wore their masks and, were safe, I'd be like, I felt safe around them. But I was like, no, I don't trust any of you.
Same
So
here.
I just did everything
Yeah.
virtually.
I've been playing it safe. I've been going out, doing a little bit of outdoor things, but better safe than sorry. Y'all have been really busy working behind the scenes, though, trickling out new singles and working on this album.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Let's
I think that was the plan for me because I felt like because I wasn't doing like outdoor gigs and I wasn't like taking on like movie roles and stuff because I had to turn down a bunch of like roles and stuff. I was like I had to make myself like still relevant, so I started putting out way more content than usual because I felt like I can still connect with an audience and grow my audience by still being myself just virtually, just doing so. Thankfully, like I was able to go viral like a bunch of times since 2020.
awesome.
I've gained a bunch of new connects, and like you said, like I dropped a bunch of singles because I wanted to kind of give people like more and more music, so that
Yeah,
like they can have more of like me in their playlists and stuff.
good on you, man. You were born in China, and you guys came to the U.S. when you were pretty young, but like you guys had lived in a few different countries and some other states other than Georgia too, right?
Yeah, so I moved to London when I was 4, Singapore
Oh
when I
wow,
was 5, and then I moved to Maryland when I was 6. So I
Maryland.
was in elementary school in Maryland, and
Yeah.
then I moved to Seattle afterwards. That was
Huh.
for like middle school and high school. I did not like it there. Um, so I was like trying to find a place that was like really relevant in hip hop. And I know that's like a really weird answer, but like at 17, 18 years old, I was like, I gotta find somewhere where my talents can be appreciated, you
Yeah.
know? So kind of like LeBron James when he took his talents to South Beach, I was like, I'm taking my talents to, somewhere that, people will I guess like, support me. So I was like, I'm gonna give Atlanta a shot. So I applied for colleges where there was a hip hop scene. So I applied to like New York, like NYU,
Oh
Emory. I
wow.
got into both, but Emory gave more money to me. And so Atlanta was just became like my adopted hometown because that was like
Yeah.
the first place that actually showed me like any kind of love.
Wow, that's so cool. What's your what's your family story like? Like why were you guys moving around to different countries so often?
It was honestly like my health conditions, just because
Mm.
there's a lot of pollution in Asia, and it was giving me a lot of like bad reactions.
Mm.
So we moved to England for that reason. We moved around a lot, and finally in the States, we just kind of said like, yeah, this is where we're gonna be. Because I had already started like elementary school,
Yeah.
and I think again like we moved back to Asia, like not moved back. We went on vacation in 5th grade because we were planning to move back, and then I got another asthma attack, and so they're like,
Mm.
yeah, it's not a good idea. So like honestly, like my health at that time like kept me in the States. So
Are
that's
your
why, and then
parents like
eventually I became a U.S. citizen.
yeah. Are your parents like Chinese, like Chinese citizens, or have they become Americans?
Yeah, we're all like naturalized You know what I'm saying? So I guess we're all of us are first generation. You know?
It took me like 20 something years to get naturalized.
Yeah.
Were your parents like musical? Like, was your household musical?
No. Honestly, like when it came to music, I was just honestly enthralled by hip hop. Like my
Oh,
first
wow.
introduction to it was Eminem. Like most
Yeah.
people that know me know it because I'm literally obsessed with Eminem. But since I was a kid, like when I saw him on MTV, I was like, oh, this guy's like the coolest person ever. You know, because at the time, like I was when I was in second grade, I was like a big fan of NSYNC, and then
Uh-huh.
Eminem came out and was like NSYNC sucks, so I like never listened to that CD again. But I was like, he had that pop star image at that time, but he was so rebellious and like
Yeah.
anti pop. So as a kid who was like going through that phase of like um, I just kind of like gravitated towards that. So when I found Eminem, I started digging in the crates and started listening to like other artists that were like within the genre. So, I found like Nas, Jay
Yeah.
Z, like Tupac, like Rakim. And then when Eminem signed 50 Cent, I was like a big fan of like 50 Cent, D12, G Unit, and then
Awesome.
DMX, rest in peace. So like
Yeah.
I just kind of fell into it, and I felt like because rapping was the coolest thing ever, I just wanted to feel like somebody. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, okay, these guys are like superheroes to me. I want to feel like a
Yeah.
superhero. I don't want to feel
That's
helpless.
wow. Um, what did your parents do, and how did music enter your life?
Well, they weren't really supportive, obviously,
Wow.
in the beginning, because I was like, in middle school saying that I wanted to drop out to be a rapper. That's probably the
Wow.
dumbest thing I could ever, you know what I'm saying? But, like eventually, like when I went to college, they became really supportive because like they kind of saw like I was getting attention. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like it wasn't like I'm just out in the streets rapping for random people. It was like major labels were hitting me up, and like I was winning. Like I won like a rap battle tournament for for cash, and then they were like, "Where did all this money come from?" You know what I'm saying? Um, and I was just showing them like little receipts of like, "Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what
yeah.
I'm doing." And as I got older and older, like there was like more and more proof of like this thing becoming tangible as a
Yeah.
financial like asset. So I think over time, like now, like my parents are like super supportive. My entire family is
Nice.
actually.
That's so cool. Do you have siblings?
No, I'm an only child.
Wow. Um, when you guys were like growing up and living in England and around the states and stuff, um, did you guys practice like Chinese traditional stuff? Like, not traditional, but like, what were some things that you guys did that kind of symbolized being Chinese to you when you were a kid?
Well, I mean, I never speak English to my parents ever, and that
Oh,
was
cool.
something that they always ingrained in me because it's really easy to lose your mother tongue if like
Mm,
you just stop. So I never it's weird for me to talk in English to my parents or any of my relatives. I'm just like, why the f would I do that? It's like what I'm saying, I'm Chinese. Of course, I'm gonna talk in Mandarin. So that's something that's always kept me rooted. And obviously like I went to Chinese school every Saturday up until like 12th grade. You know what I
mm,
mean? But
wow.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I think I got super prideful about being Asian like these past 2 years. Like before, there was still some kind of resistance because most of my like race, like bad experiences in the industry and just in life has been because I was Asian. So I always felt like
Yeah.
being Asian was like I'm sure you felt the same thing. It's like it felt like it was a liability. It's like man, if I was
Yeah.
just some other race, I just but I think I turned that weakness into a superpower because I realized I'm not the only person that feels like this because of this how systemically we were been set up, right? As far as like how people normalize their hate towards us. I'm just like this is something I'm it's like the more they hate us, the more I loved us. And
Yeah.
I definitely poured that into my art as well.
Wow. Um, as you were growing up, and by the way, that's awesome. That's a really great story, and I'm glad all that's been going down in the last couple years. um, you
Absolutely.
said that you started like getting really you abandoned the pop boy bands and you got into hip hop and when you were younger, like in high school, did you perform or record any of that stuff?
Yeah, so embarrassing enough, I recorded a demo tape when I was in middle school, and like me and this other guy, Evan, who was my best friend at the time, we like just
Uh-huh.
sold it to everyone at school,
Whoa.
performed at talent shows, and yeah, I mean it was really embarrassing because like I literally talked to one of my friends from middle school, and he was like, yo, bro, I still have your mixtape. I'm gonna sell it for $5,000 when because I know you're gonna be famous in like next year. I was like, please don't ever show the world. I was like, I'll pay you $5,000 myself to never upload this on the internet. So yeah, that's my embarrassing story as far as like my musical teenage career.
That's so funny. So you said you moved out to college specifically because of the music in those
Yeah.
areas, and
Hmm.
you must have just been dead set, like, let's go do this, right?
I was, man. I just because I think what pushed me honestly was I was bullied so hard in middle and high
Mm,
school. Like before people even knew what like cyberbullying was, I was a victim of that. You know, it's like
mm,
I got ostracized because I wanted to rap, and everyone in school knew I wanted to rap, and they didn't accept that because I was Asian. You know, and these are all white
yeah.
kids that were just like, oh, this should only be for black people, and they have to be gangsters. You know, it's like really racist white thinking. You know, like my friend was black, and he eventually joined a gang, and they were like, oh yeah, he can do it. He qualifies for what we think. Um,
Wow.
Meanwhile, like I'm like studying for the SATs in like in eighth grade because obviously like Asian parents, right? Uh, which is probably why I have such an immense like like vocabulary because I would read vocabulary words, SAT words all the time, and I enjoyed it because
Yeah.
I liked using that in my raps. But yeah, man, it was tough, and because of how badly I was treated, I just at that time I was like, I want to just prove all these kids wrong because it's like
Yeah.
you guys told me I'll never be nothing, I'll never amount to nothing. You're gonna, never achieve anything, and I'm like, okay, all right, and that has always been my driving force was to prove everyone wrong.
That's dope.
And yeah, I think little by little I've been doing that, and that's yeah. It's just I mean, maybe that's not like the best way to like go about your career, but it's been something. Childhood trauma never really leaves you. So I think for me, the way to heal is to succeed.
Yeah, I see. Wow. You dropped your first EP, First Time's the Charm, 2017, and apparently it did pretty well because you got a bunch of plays. You started playing music festivals. You had a few songs placed in some TV and
Right.
stuff. How did that come about? Like, how did those opportunities show up?
Um, I think as far as opportunities, it started like in 2015. I had did this show in Philadelphia, and I kind of gained a fan base overnight.
Hmm.
And from that, it kind of trickled to different opportunities. They're like, hey, I want to book you in DC. I want to book you in Virginia. I want to book you in New York. So I just kind of said yes to everything, like Jim Carrey
Nice.
and Yes Man. And because I'm like, yo, like if you're gonna pay for me to travel and perform, sure.
Yeah.
And I think I just started building a buzz for myself. Even at that time when I didn't have much of an internet presence, like I was really like hustling, like on the road, just like fan meets, shows, like events here and there, and just really, really making my face known. And then I just started doubling down on my internet presence because I'm like,
Mm.
obviously, as you know, it's like social proof is everything. So I just started really working hard on my Instagram and Facebook presence, and eventually TikTok.
Yeah.
And it's been a long journey, but I think I'm proud to look back and see how far I've come.
Uh, did you work with other people to produce that first EP?
Absolutely. There's no features on it, but as far as producers, yeah, like the one of the main producers was he was a Chops from Mountain Brothers, who
Mm.
Mountain Brothers was the first Asian American hip hop group to sign with a major label back in the '90s. He's also like one of
Yeah.
my mentors. And so he
Nice.
did All of You and Color Me Bad. Both were placed on TV. So All of You was on featured on the show iZombie on CW. Um, and like on that, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I don't ever want anyone to listen to that EP again because I'll look back and I was like, oh my god, so many mistakes on this. I'm just like, oh my god, I could have said this, I could have rapped this, and I'm just like, oh my god. But I mean, like if there are two songs I would recommend, it would probably be like All of You and Color Me Bad and maybe Distance. But I listen to the other stuff. I'm like, God, this is so embarrassing.
That's so funny because that was my follow-up question too. Like, how do you feel your music has changed since then? And do you feel a lot more focused as far as your message and your topics?
Absolutely. I think like at that time, I was still kind of figuring myself out. You know, like I was
Hmm.
just making almost like I don't want to say placeholder music, but I was making songs I felt like was right for the commercial audience. So I was just doing whatever was going to make me sell. And
Mm.
I felt like I didn't go deep enough into who I was. And I remember the criticism that one of my older friends got. Like his name's Mister. Like he's a like a videographer for the Brat, you know, the
Mm.
female singer from So So Def, and he female rapper from So So Def, and he told me like, bro, like I listen to your music and you're good, but what is your story? Like, who is
Mm.
Alan Z? He's like, I know you're good. People know you're good, but I don't know enough about you. And then so when he said that, it put me in this like journey to want to personalize myself more into my music, right?
Yeah.
And be vulnerable, be open, be very transparent. And I think
Yeah.
that's when the masks started like unfolding. No pun intended. You know, as far as 2021, but I just got super comfortable with myself, man. You know,
Love
all
it.
my flaws, all my insecurities, all my pros and cons. And I think that
Yeah.
was what made me like so undeniable now as an artist is because
Do
it's like
you
there's nothing you can say to me because I know everything about myself.
did you also see like the audience? Did you see that click with the audience too once you started getting more into your own skin?
Yeah, I noticed that like people were rooting for me harder.
Wow.
Before it was like there was support definitely, and I definitely had. I'll always be thankful for like my fans, but I think in this day and age, it's like people are like, "Oh, you're in your bag now." It's like, "Oh, I get it." Like you're really coming into yourself. It's not so much like, "Hey, support my friend, please." It's more so like, "Yo, this guy's gonna blow up." It's like that energy is like, "No, you have to listen to him." Not like,
Yeah.
"Please, he's really good. I promise you." Like it's the discourse has changed, which is something I appreciate. I never want to be like somebody's like friend who really wants to be like, no, like I don't care if you support me or not. Like I want you to listen because I'm credible.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, that's great. A few months ago, I guess during like a Slants Foundation meeting, or maybe on Slack or something, I got to review a proposal, and it was your proposal, you and Jason Chu.
Hmm.
Jason Chu also appears in episode 12 of Coffee with Bao, by the way,
Hmm.
for you guys watching. Um, and it was a proposal for an album and a multimedia experience based around telling the stories of the Asian American experience. And I think we unanimously voted to help fund that project, along with a few other organizations.
Hmm.
And I'm really excited about it. Uh, can you like give me like your elevator pitch for what it is? Face
Yeah.
value?
So me and Jason Chu's upcoming album, Face Value, it drops Friday, May 14th.
Yes.
And it's basically an album, a concept album that centers around Asian American history and experiences. And it's an album that is not only reflective of our past, but also reflective of what's happening today because everything correlates.
Mm.
So the album is full of, people that you'll probably know, like Ronnie Chang, Dante Bosco, AJ Raphael,
Yes.
Ruby Ibarra, Chow Mein, B. Vang, who plays the Lee Meng actor in Gran Torino, a couple of South Asian artists like Neela, Humble the Poet, and a bunch more that I don't want to spoil the surprises for anyone who will be listening, which I hope is everyone watching. And it's just a special record because I feel like it's something we want to be able to kind of not only amplify all of our diverse voices, but also something that can bring like understanding and healing, in this crazy time.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm gonna show folks the album art for the first single off that record. Their first single is called Model Minority, and that's Jason Chu, Alan Z, featuring Dante Vasco. Y'all gotta know who Dante Vasco is, right? And Neela, who does the hooks on the song.
Hmm.
I think it's probably one of my favorite songs in your discography so far.
Oh,
It's
thank
really
you.
great, Alan. So you guys, I'm chatting with Alan Z. He's a hip hop R&B artist from Atlanta. He's got this new album coming up soon on the 15th May,
14th.
14th, sorry, called Face Value, and it's a collaboration with Jason Chu, who was previously on Coffee with Bao. And judging from this first single, and I think you guys are dropping another single in like a couple days, right?
May 7th is when we drop our second single, Making the
So
Band, which
dope.
features Humble the Poet. And
Yes.
shout out to the producers too. So the producers for Making the Band were West One and Macrohard, who have worked with people like Ted Park and a bunch of dope like Korean hip hop artists. And yeah, shout out to Mio So too, who did the Model Minority joint. She's a super dope producer and DJ out of New York.
That's great. So, judging from this first single, it's going to be an incredible album and a really powerful statement on the challenges and the triumphs within the Asian American community throughout the history of this country. You can find Alan Z at alanzmusic.com, or he's got a pretty strong social media presence on Instagram at alanzmusic. So, um, Alan, coming from a concept and then getting people to buy into it and then actually executing that is a ton of work and like a lot of moving parts. What was your journey with Jason to get this project out into the world?
Dude, I didn't even think it was possible. Like when we were about to, go for the pitch, the process of pitching to people, like in my head, I'm like, if this doesn't work out, I really hope like, we can do this for next year or something. Cause I was just
Mm,
so like, I look back on the whole process and I'm like, I'm so proud of ourselves, like
yeah.
just because it's like you said, right? We had a window of about 3 months to do this. We started, the pitches in January, right? We got the funding. We started the writing process in February. We started the recording process and finished the recording process in March, right? And
Wow.
then on the last month of March, we did mixing and mastering for a week and a half, which is like 30 hours of me and the
Crazy.
engineer sitting down and like, you know, making sure everything sounds right. And then we, during that time, we met with a bunch of cool, like, organizations and, distributors. And we partnered with Traverse, who has a distribution deal with Sony Orchard. So
Mm,
our album's going to be released through them. And we just did all that while recording, while writing, while figuring everything out. And it's like, it was a wild ride. And it's crazy to think that like maybe it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't this time, because we felt like this time was
mm,
so like necessary. It's like not an album you can push back, because this is something I feel like the Asian American community needs to like have, not even for our vanity, but more so for, to be heard, to know that like, we are appreciated. Our history is something to be cherished and not erased.
wow. That's beautifully put. That's crazy. As far as your contribution to the record, what do you think your secret sauce was that you brought to the table?
Oh man, one is definitely bars, just because I'm very, very like bar heavy. Um, I'm super competitive as a rapper. I'm sure anyone who listens to me knows. Like I'm like when I'm even if you're my friend or not, like I'm rapping at your neck. Like I'm trying to make sure I'm pushing you, and I'm making sure you're like close to me, or as close as you could to my pen. And also I
Wow.
would say like I definitely brought like my pop sensibilities into it, my boy band sensibility, because I sing too. So like I
Yeah.
contributed a bunch of hooks to this album. Like on tracks like Foreigner, I sing on that. Bruce, I sing on that. Making the Band, the second single, I sing the hook on
Uh-huh.
that. And a bunch of other songs that I don't want to ruin for you guys. Um, and I think like I had like me and Jason had the vision mapped out, so it was really easy for us to like know who to hit up for features, know who to hit up for production, and
Mm,
piece everything together, because we kind of like listed every track and specifically made every track tied to a certain theme. Like for example, like Modern Minority, which addresses the myth of the modern minority. Making the Band, which addresses the systemic oppression and laws that we face, like Chinese Exclusion Act, Muslim ban, internment camps, right? Like
Yeah.
very specific things. So that helped with the process of building the album.
Wow. I'm really excited. I haven't heard the record yet, but just that first single is powerful, man. It's so good. I think it's pretty clear, like you
Thank you,
said
man.
earlier, that this album is like specifically for this moment and it can't be pushed back. And what's been going on with the Asian American community in terms of it's got a weird duality right now. Like on one hand, we're getting all this hate crime targeted at us, right? Like
Hmm.
people getting assaulted and stuff. And then on the other hand, in culture and entertainment, we're making some pretty big advancements in terms of representation.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's like a weird tumultuous time. I actually don't know what to make of it, to be honest.
Hmm.
But what are you hoping this album accomplishes in the short term and the long term?
Beyond just the Asian American community, I want people to realize how misinformed they are when it comes to our pain. And I think it's
Mm,
really important for us to, keep speaking up and standing up for ourselves, not only for this current moment, but to also rectify and contextualize what we've been through for, before we were born, our ancestors, right?
yeah,
Um, I also want to be able to kind of like bring a sense of restoration and healing to, Asian American listeners who do listen and feel seen from what we're talking about, feel heard, feel like, oh, wow, like they're speaking to my experience. They're, like this is something that I can really relate to, because I feel
yeah,
like even when I listen to like rappers that aren't Asian, right? Like a lot of times I'll listen and I'm like, oh, I love this, but I totally do not relate, So I think it would be great to have a record that's so Asian American that like if you are Asian American, it's like it's right there for you. Like you know what I mean? Like you don't have to dig far to know
mm,
how how to feel represented, to feel seen, to feel like you belong here.
yeah. I think that one of the approaches you guys took is to really dig into history and, like you said, talk about stories from before we were even born, and I think there's a lot of power in that. I also appreciate that you guys like pay tribute to a lot of the trailblazers that have gone before us.
Mhm.
Um, I wonder if there's anything else that you guys attempted to do that maybe is nuanced and that people might not grasp right away.
It may be like subtle, but we were very like intentional with making sure voices of different like nationalities were heard. Like we didn't want to
Mm,
make this like an East Asian American history album. We don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we had
yeah,
a bunch of Southeast Asians on it. We had South Asians on it, and we had all of them. Like for example, I'm out of minority. We had East Asians, Southeast Asian, obviously Dante Bosco, and South Asians, with Neela. So it's like we wanted
yeah,
to show that kind of unification, and even within the Asian community, like we have so many like random beefs and like unnecessary tension, and it's like
yeah,
for what? It's like yo, like if a Asian person sees us, we're all Asian to them. It doesn't
yeah,
matter, like you can't like reason that. Oh no, don't worry, I'm Vietnamese or I'm Japanese. Like no, you're still gonna get punched in the face. You better respect the fact that we're all in this together.
yeah,
Um, and also, I think also like I want people who will give this album a listen to realize that this is not like a history lesson. Like once you listen to the album, it's a really well produced record. Like you won't go into it feeling like a chore. It's gonna be music you'll want to play because it's we're musical people, right? Like this is something that like we've wanted to do not only for ourselves but also to kind of prove a point that like our history is not boring. Our history is actually pretty sexy. Like you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of like things that we can really pull from to be proud of.
yeah. Wow, that's awesome, dude. Um, what do you think, like, moving forward for you, like specifically for you as an artist? What do you think success is going to be in the next few years?
I think financial stability, like in what I do in terms of
Yeah,
like my music and acting career. I definitely want to get more into acting just because that's like a huge passion of mine. So like, acting and modeling is something that I want to be able to like use music as a launch pad for. That's something I've always told people I wanted to do. So as far as I can go with music, I'm gonna keep going, and hopefully I'll have a very long music career, knock on wood, and financially successful music career. But I know that like I can't like be like in this like age range forever, right?
Yeah.
So I know that my retirement plan does not lie in hip hop. My retirement plan lies in other facets of entertainment or business. So that's
Mm.
why in the next few years I want to invest my time and my energy into like acting, screenwriting, producing TV shows, especially with, making sure that we're seen. That's something I'm
Yeah.
super passionate about. If I can be like on the seat of the table and be like, no, we got to make sure this person is selected, not Chad, our people, because he plays a specific role that is like, you know what I'm saying? Like I want to be able to be in those kind of rooms. So that's something I want to really do moving forward.
Cool. We are talking with Alan Z about his new record, Face Value. It's a collaboration with Jason Chu, and it's a reflection on a long history of the Asian American experience.
Mm-hmm.
Based on their first record, Model Minority, this album's going to be total banger. So you can find Alan at alanzmusic.com or hit him up on Instagram, alanzmusic. I think that you have a really strong artist presence online, but just to be honest, from what I grasped, there's not that much like super personal stuff, and it's probably a good move to on your end. But outside of music, are you working on anything personally that will help you level up as a human being?
I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Like the stuff that I'm working on, outside of music and whatever, I want to show people, when I'm ready. Like I don't want to divulge that because I feel like that's if something is a work in progress, I don't want to put that out there, because that's something internally for me to work on.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot, you know what I mean? And I think the reason why like I don't put like my personal life out there is because I learned from the greats, right? Like I learned from like Eminem, Andre 3000, from Outkast, and people like that. Is you got to have a sense of mystery to you, because as accessible as I may seem online, there's a lot that like people not within my inner circle don't know about me, and I'm okay with it. And I think they're okay with that too, because there's got to be certain boundaries you set as a human. Even if you are a public figure, there's a certain line you don't want to cross, and I'm very clear about that. So
Nice.
I think like I give enough to the people, and I like through my art, whether that's music, acting, skits, or in my writing, whatever it may be, I give you what I think you should hear, or some form of me that is personal. But I think we all deserve to have our own privacy when it comes to like who we are and what we want to keep to ourselves. I know people are like, oh, when you're a celebrity, you can't have privacy. No, that's a choice. I don't need to go to an A-list club if I don't want to go be seen. You know what I mean? I'm not like, or whatever. Like, I'm not saying I'm A-list, whatever. I'm saying, when you get to that point, you make a choice. You make that choice if you want to be like, put yourself out there like that. So I'm working my hardest to maintain that sense of privacy,
Yeah. Damn, that's great. I think that's a good approach, and I guess everybody's different, and everybody has different needs and desires, but like if that's something that you care about, like I would say to all artists, like you don't need to put it all out there, right? It's like you got to reserve a little space for yourself. So good move on your part.
Yeah, man. I think you can put it all out there in your music or whatever art outlet you choose, but I think it's good to leave a little room for mystery, even in social media days. Because that's just my opinion, though. Some people may think different, and that's cool too.
Yeah. There's been a lot going on lately within the Asian American community, like I said earlier. And I think a lot of us in the last like year and a half or two have been encouraged to or inspired to really lean into that, especially in the creative community, like really lean into our Asian American identity. Mm-hmm. And band together and be a bigger force. Having said that, I feel like sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, like just to, constantly be barraged with people doing their best to be activists or people really fighting to have their voices heard or to fight for justice for our community. And sometimes I believe in that stuff. Sometimes it wears me out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if you feel the same way and whether you have any tactics of like coping with that and protecting your mental health, your personal well-being.
Absolutely, man. I think every day I open my feed and it's something terrible happening to our community. And it's like, it's so frustrating to see over and over and for people to still gaslight and like still make it seem like
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. It's just, and it's also annoying when like people like tag me or like DM me say, "Have you seen this?" I'm like, "Yes, I've seen it." Like, why do you think you should traumatize me? They're like, "You should say something about it." I'm like, dude, trust me, I've seen it. I just don't want to relive in that trauma, right?
Yeah.
Of like having to see it over and over, right?
Same.
It's just not, but I think for me, I don't really jump in comment sections as much as I used to. Like I just refuse to do that, because I feel like that's like a cesspool of misinformation and hateful people.
Yeah.
I think what is progress is done, within like actual like meetings, organizations, and like just putting together a plan together as whatever group you're a part of to do something positive, right? It doesn't happen within like commenting and arguing with Bob from Wisconsin, right? It happens, through like actual work. So I think one, I try my best not to be on social media as much as I actually am because of what I do. But
Because you need
I
it for
usually
work, right?
exactly right. But I'm not. I don't do it for fun. Like I remember my friend told me this quote, and it was like, back in the days. Okay, back in the days, you go on the internet to escape from reality, but nowadays you go live in reality to escape from the internet. And I feel like that's how I feel nowadays. Is like I try my best to not stay on the internet because it's so hateful and so much evil. So I try to divulge that time into my creative efforts to check up on like loved ones and watch anime or some show on Netflix.
Yeah. So let's wrap up by talking a little more about face value. However much you can share, no pressure. But like the approach is clearly that you want to make songs that are great songs, but like also have a really powerful message and a powerful sense of action behind them. And how did you guys like approach the writing of the music, and how do you think it came out as a reflection of that goal?
I think it was exactly how we wanted it to come out.
Wow.
As like as as confident as that may sound, it's just I couldn't have made like change anything about it just because of how perfect the vision came out, because it was like enough material for us to look back and say this is what we wanted to touch on for this time period, right? That is necessary for people to hear. And also for me, like I feel like I've written some of the best verses like in my career so far, because I'm like, this is so personal to me. Like I've had so many people like in my comments when I just did a reel for my verse on Modern Minority on Instagram, they're just like, yo, this is like the best verse I've ever heard from you. I'm like, bro, wait till you hear the album, because it's like that's the energy I kept. It's like,
Yes,
it's coming from not only pain, but it's coming from like historical like references and knowledge and all this new stuff that people aren't used to, right? Because like people are used to hearing about certain subjects because it's referencing hip hop all the time, but this is like so new to bring to music, to to be able to kind of reference these icons and like important people in our community. So I think it's yeah, man, I couldn't have done it any other way with this project, because musically it's like we worked with some of the dopest producers in terms of like what they could have brought to the table. Features, like we had like a dream collaboration team, like Ronnie Chang, Dante Bosco, right? Like Asia Raphael, Ruby Ibarra. Like I have a duet with Ruby Ibarra. That's like, how crazy is that? It's like, yo, right? And then I co-wrote a song with Asia Raphael, for his like solo like track on the album. It's like all these things that I would have wanted to do like years ago, but not know how to execute. And it's like this is finally the time to do it, and it's just so cool to see it all unfold.
Yes, that's so awesome. So I think the record's gonna drop less than a week from when this episode airs. May 14th. The album is called Face Value. Is it one word or two?
2 words.
2 words, Face Value.
Yes.
And that's Alan Z and Jason Chu, and a bunch of really cool features on the record. You want to shout out to anybody before we wrap?
Sure. Yeah. Shout out to Jason Chu and the whole GG team. Shout out to Traverse, the whole team there. Shout out to The Orchard. Shout out to some of my homies, Taj, Hollywood KT, Shaman. Man, I'm gonna forget so many people, and people go, "Yo, why'd you shout me out?" Because I try to go on this rant of, you know what, that's it. Because I'm gonna end up offending more people. But yeah, man, there's a lot of people to shout out.
What do you think? Was there any like scary moments when you guys were making this record? Like, did you guys screw anything up, or was there anything like that was really hard?
When we were trying to look for features for this album, it was really scary because you know how like artists and entertainers are. They don't answer you the next day. They answer when they feel like it. So we were like looking at the deadline, like, okay, we got to submit this, and they're just like, yeah, I'll get it, I'll get to it. And and obviously it was like last minute, we got everything, but it's like just the fear of like, oh man, they're gonna come through. I don't want to put anyone on blast, but there was like certain people that like sent their stuff like literally the last day. I'm like, thank God, and they made the record. But it's like those moments of anxiety is like, oh my God, like I think I need to take some medicine and lie down because it's just so much pressure. But thankfully everything worked out. So I definitely feel blessed.
Yeah, dude, I had a lot of fun chatting with you. So thanks for making time to join me and share your story and stuff. It's really good.
Of course.
Guys, I've been chatting with Alan Z. He's got this album, Face Value, that the Slants Foundation helped to fund, along with a few other groups. And it's a collaboration with Jason Chu, who's on a previous episode of Coffee with BAO. You can find Alan on his website, alanzmusic.com, or his Instagram, alanzmusic. If you like the show, you can support me by subscribing and sharing this with your friends. Also, if you can financially support the show, I'd really appreciate that. You can buy me a coffee at coffeewithbao.com. And thank you. Oh, this month we're doing once a week. So we'll have a new episode every week this month in May. And thank you for joining me for Coffee with Bao. I'll see you next time.